or in the regional office but sealed. And in terms of our guidelines, they can only be disposed of after 6 months because remember, after elections, there could be litigation. People can take you to court and demand that ballot boxes must be recounted and so on. So this notion that a conference that was democratically held, successfully so, is under attack is just absolute hogwash. And those in the ANC who are doing this without evidence are just ill-disciplined, and the ANC will deal with them.
The ANC Secretary General says the elected regional office bearers with Loyiso Masuku at the helm are not being disputed except for those elected as additional members.
There's nobody who said the regional conference is under question. No, there's no regional conference that is under question here. There are issues, complaints that have been raised, in particular in relation to the election of the additional members. I've never received anybody who says that, no, this conference SG must be. All the complaints that I received, which the province have got, which have got nothing to do with the Sunday incident.
He said he's expecting a full report on the much talked about Joburg Regional Conference on Monday. On other issues, a big march is planned against what he calls the US imperialism and its isolation of South Africa on Human Rights Day, the 21st of March. He said the ANC and its alliance partners will highlight their opposition to the US aggression and its determination to undermine multilateralism.
We're marching in defense of our sovereignty, which is under attack. We're marching against imperialist aggression, which seeks to dictate to what must happen to other states. We're marching against the undermining of multilateral forums in the form of the United Nations and creating peace boards led by Donald Trump administration in the United States. We ourselves have been targeted that we are conducting a genocide on white people. We have been very decent, explain ourselves, but America has intensified its isolation of our country.
And as the party prepares for the crunch 2026 local government elections, with fears that it could perform badly against the backdrop of poor service delivery compounded by the proliferation of a number of political parties, the ANC Secretary General makes this vow.
The ANC enters 2026 with determination to lead, to serve, and to deliver.
Africa's leading food, drinks and hospitality trade expo, Hostex, is set to take place early March in Johannesburg in South Africa. Now, this year's event will be celebrating a 40-year legacy of bringing together restaurateurs, chefs, hotel operators, buyers and suppliers to find new products, solutions as well as trends. Tuto Ngobeni compiled this report.
Hostex 2026, set to take place in early March at the Sandton Convention Centre north of Johannesburg in South Africa, comes at a time when South Africa's food and hospitality value chain face rising costs, energy insecurity and tighter margins. The event, which has become Africa's leading food, drinks and hospitality expo, will mark its 40th anniversary as it continues to bring together suppliers, brands, buyers and industry leaders from hotels, restaurants, cafes, contract catering, institutional caterers, retail and tourism under one roof. Lerato Nako, event manager of Hostex, says this event will showcase innovation and the global trends in the sector.
All these sectors under one roof. For the hospitality industry, Hostex is important because, as I mentioned, it's everybody under one roof. And the common thread is to connect an ecosystem from operators to manufacturers to distributors, showcase innovation, what's new, what's hip, what's happening, what are the trends globally, and it also brings insights and builds skills. And we do this through various features we have at the show. Most importantly, because we are B2B, it creates real ROI, where buyer meets seller.
This year's theme is Opening Doors for 40 Years and Beyond, which is celebrating the Hostex legacy in this industry, with Nako saying their focus is to create more opportunities.
Since 1986, Hostex has provided a platform for buyers and suppliers to meet, for new brands to launch, and for the industry to reconnect, even in tough economic conditions. The 40-year milestone gave natural opportunity to celebrate this role. Our focus, however, is to make sure that we are able to create opportunities with slow growth, rising costs, and operational pressures. The team this year was intentional in helping exhibitors and visitors to unlock new revenues, efficiencies, and partnerships.
Meanwhile, NACO says they are looking forward to the regional championship that they will host, and visitors will benefit massively from the free-to-attend seminars that they will host.
What is always amazing to look forward to at Hostex is, of course, our demo area with South African Chef Association, including our beverage masterclasses that will be led by Look at Concepts as well as Fit Hasa. We will be showcasing the regional barrister championships, the Gauteng region, where the Gauteng champ will be crowned at Hostex. We are super excited about the lineup we have for the free-to-attend seminars, where the idea is to exchange skills, have conversations that matter for this industry.
For Channel Africa News, I'm Tuto Ngobeni in Johannesburg.
Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, Keir Starmer, has touched down in China, the first such visit by a British Prime Minister since 2018. He's there with around 60 business leaders, where he'll meet President Xi Jinping with trade high on the agenda. It comes after India and the European Union sealed their own trade deal this week, as Europe increasingly looks to new partners in Asia amid trade pressures and threats from an increasingly perfectionist America. Botlali Pele has more.
It's the first visit to China by a British Prime Minister in 8 years. Keir Starmer arrived in Beijing with a delegation of more than 50 business leaders, signaling renewed push for economic engagement with the world's second largest economy.
Because it's 8 years since a British Prime Minister stepped on Chinese soil. And so on this delegation, you're making history. There are huge opportunities to be had in lots of different sectors.
Speaking to business leaders, Starmer said the UK would pursue what he described as a mature and strategic approach to China, focused on delivering economic benefits back home while managing differences between the two countries.
We will have to manage our differences, but that's what you do with a mature, consistent, comprehensive and strategic approach to China. We manage our differences, we take our opportunities, and we constantly think, how does this deliver for people back at home?
China has welcomed the visit. Foreign Ministry spokesperson Zhao Jiakun said Beijing is ready to deepen cooperation with Britain amid what it calls a complex and volatile international environment. He says enhanced communication and cooperation between China and the UK serve the common interests of the two peoples and are conducive to world peace, stability and development. On Thursday, Starmer held talks with President Xi Jinping on the Great Hall of the People. She told the British leader that China is willing to build a long-term strategic partnership with the United Kingdom. He says China is willing to develop a long-term, stable and comprehensive strategic partnership with Britain, which will benefit the people of both countries and the world. Starmer described China as a vital global player as he seeks to reset relations after years of tension over Hong Kong, security concerns and Beijing's ties with Russia.
China is a vital player on the global stage, and it's vital that we build a more sophisticated relationship.
Analysts say the visit reflects a broader shift by Western nations seeking stability in ties with China, even as divisions remain. Starmer travels to Shanghai next, where talks with local executives are expected to focus on trade, technology and investment. I'm Botlali Pele, SABC News.
Let's catch you up now with our news headlines. It's 6:31 Central African Time. Good morning, Onele.
SABC News. Headlines. The African perspective.
Thank you, Asanda. Burkina Faso's military-led government has dissolved all political parties and scrapped the legal framework governing their operations. The decision by the military rulers who seized power in September 2022 is the latest move to tighten control following the suspension of political activities following the coup. The Madlanga Commission in South Africa says significant progress has been made following the establishment of the task team assigned with implementing the Commission's recommendations to President Cyril Ramaphosa. And US President Donald Trump has declared Cuba as a threat to his country's security. Channel Africa News, I am Onele Ntsinzi.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
Right, let's take a look at the first full sports bulletin. And on a Friday, I guess we've got so much to look forward to in terms of upcoming weekend sport. But let's catch you up with Musibudi Makura.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Thank you so much, Peter. A very good morning from the sports desk. Indeed, we are now looking forward to the weekend. And on the menu is the CAF Champions League as it continues this weekend with match day 4 of the group stages as clubs now across the continent enter a decisive phase in the race for places in the quarterfinals. So with the competition now at its halfway point as 3 rounds of matches have been played, the front runners are now seeking to consolidate their positions while also chasing teams want now to revive their qualification hopes. So all eyes will be on Group A, which will take up, with Cairo, should I say, in Egypt, being the place where we'll get to see a match on Sunday, the 1st of February, where the defending champions Pyramids FC will host RS Bakan of Morocco. Elsewhere in the group, Rivers United of Nigeria will face off with Power Dynamos of Zambia. Meanwhile, in Group B, Young Africans welcome the record champions Al Ali. That's on Saturday, with the Egyptian side now targeting a win to move closer to securing qualification to the quarterfinals. Later on in the evening, AS FAR of Morocco will face off with JS Kabali of Sudan. At the same time, the Group C action gets underway today. This as Al Hilal will face off with the Mamelodi Sundowns of South Africa in the top of the table clash. The two sides are separated by just goal difference, with Sundowns leading the group and Al Hilal close behind in second position. So that action gets underway at 9 p.m. Central African time in Rwanda. Meanwhile, on Sunday, MC Alger will host Saint Elu Lupopo of the Democratic Republic of Congo, with the DR Congo side holding a narrow advantage. The fixture offers MC Alger a final chance to re-enter the qualification race. Meanwhile, Group D fixtures begin on Saturday with Petro de Luanda of Angola welcoming Stade Milan of Mali at 4 p.m. Central African time. Now, Stade Milan currently sit top of the group, and another positive result would then further strengthen their grip, on a quarter-final place. Meanwhile, on Sunday, Simba SC host Esperance de Tunis in the fixture that could also prove decisive in shaping the group standings as the battle for qualification intensifies. Rugby news now. South Africa's Springbok Sevens team are in Singapore as one of the most dangerous attacking teams on the World Series at the Singapore National Stadium. But their cutting edge will rely less on familiar conductors and more on the finishing power, experience and versatility of players such as Shilton van Wyk as well as Donovan Don, as the Blitzboks now adapt to live without their injured playmaking trio. The Blitzboks are without Selvin Davids, Ronald Brown as well as Devilled Human, placing greater now responsibility on the remaining senior backs to guide a reshaped unit through a demanding weekend. The Blitzboks landed in humid Singapore in fine form, having won back-to-back Cape Town Sevens titles in December and then topping the log after 2 events, scoring more tries than any other team in the opening 2 tournaments of the HSBC Sevens World Series. On to cricket news now. Former South Africa under-19 captain Kyle Reinager has been called up to the Proteas women's squad for the very first time. This is part of the T20 squad that will take on Pakistan at home from the 10th of February. So the 20-year-old becomes the latest former youth international to graduate into the senior team, following in the footsteps of Karaba Meso, Mene Smith, Shane Naidu, as well as Ayanda Hlubi. Coach of the side, Mandla Mashimbi, explained what led to Reinager being picked up for the 3-match series, saying she brings a fresh dynamic into the Proteas women's setup.
Kayla is an off spinner, of which we've been struggling to get of late. We don't have an off spinner that's playing for our team. We've got bowlers that take the ball away from a batter, not into the batter. And also she's a good batsman. And in terms of T20 cricket, she's very explosive. So we felt that, that is probably the right mix we're looking for from a Kayla point of view. And also, she was Asanda 19 captain, and she's got a good cricket brain on her, and she's done well domestically as well.
And finally, South Africa struck the first blow in the Spar Challenge Netball Series at the Ellis Park Stadium in the city of Johannesburg on Thursday night, holding their nerve to win the opening test 52-48. So playing in front of the home crowd for the first time since 2024. There were a few nervous moments from the South Africans, particularly in the opening minutes of that game. So the two nations will now meet again in the second match at the same venue on Saturday, and that game starting officially at 5 p.m. Central African time. Meanwhile, in the curtain raiser match earlier in the day at the Ellis Park Arena, South Africa's men's netball side went down 36-69 to the visiting Australian invitational team. Well, it's 6:38 a.m. Central African time. It concludes your first sporting update this morning on Africa Rise and Shine. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, do send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za. Call us. The newsroom line is +27 11714 4459. For Channel Africa Sport, I am Musibudi Makura.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Still to come on Rise and Shine, we look at the South African Reserve Bank having decided to keep the repo rate unchanged at 6.75%. And this was from its latest Monetary Policy Committee, or MPC, meeting that this came out. That story coming up.
Ukatili wa kijinsia unaharibu maisha na kutenga jamii. Hutokea nyumbani, shuleni, kazini na mara nyingi kwa ukimya. Lakini hauwezi kuendelea. Ukiona, ongea. Ikiwa unaumia, funguka, kwa sababu kutofanya lolote sio chaguo. Sikiliza vituo vyote 19 vya redio kuanzia Jumatano ya tarehe 23 Julai kwenye mijadala, ushauri, tamthilia, maonyesho ya elimu na mahojiano na wataalamu, manusura, watunga sheria na nchi nzima iliyoathirika na ukatili wa kijinsia kwenye vituo vyako pendwa vya redio. Piga simu 0800 428 428 ili kuripoti unyanyasaji au kupata msaada. GBV ikomeshwe na wewe. Ujumbe huu umeletwa kwenu na shirika la SABC.
Let's find out for the first time on this Friday morning what's happening in the world of business, and we say good morning to Chandugo Likege.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Asanda. Good morning. South African Reserve Bank Governor Lesitsha Kganyago says if the rand continues to strengthen and oil prices continue to drop, more interest rate cuts can be expected this year. This after the bank's Monetary Policy Committee decided to keep rates unchanged. This has left the repo rate steady at 6.75% and the prime lending rate at 10.2%. The bank says inflation has reached its peak for the year and is expected to remain under control. Kganyago made the rate announcement in Pretoria.
We assess the risks to the inflation outlook as balanced. Against this backdrop, the MPC decided to keep the policy rate unchanged at 6.75%. Two members favored a cut of 25 basis points, while 4 preferred a hold. The quarterly projection model continues to forecast gradual rate cuts as inflation subsides.
The South African Federation of Trade Unions, SAFTU, has called for urgent intervention in halting what it calls deindustrialization, factory closures and the wholesaling of the country's economy. The Trade Union Federation has criticized plans by British American Tobacco to shut down its local manufacturing plant at the end of the year. The company cited criminal syndicates dominating the industry as the main reason, with illicit cigarettes now accounting for 75% of the market. SAFTU General Secretary Zulenzima Vavi says they have also taken issue with the Tobacco Products and Electronic Delivery Systems Control Bill that is currently up for consideration in Parliament.
Parliament must not pass, we repeat, the Tobacco Control Bill in its current form. The process must be halted immediately. This bill will weaken legal producers, will strengthen illicit and criminal operators, will accelerate factory closures, and will finish off the thousands of remaining manufacturing jobs. You cannot regulate compliant companies out of existence whilst criminals operate freely.
In West Africa, Ghana's cedi is expected to weaken further next week on firm corporate demand, while Nigeria's naira is seen holding steady and Kenya's shilling is likely to remain stable, reflecting mixed currency trends across sub-Saharan Africa. The cedi is forecast to depreciate in the coming week, pressured by steady corporate demand from the energy, services and construction sectors. According to London Stock Exchange data, yesterday the cedi traded at 10.97 compared to 10.85 a week ago. A trader at Stanbic Bank Ghana, Ronald Mensah, says the cedi remains under mild pressure, with foreign exchange demand persistently outpacing supply. He further notes that while the central bank's foreign exchange spot auctions have provided occasional relief, market tightness persists. In East Africa, Ethiopian Airlines has cancelled flights from Addis Ababa to several airports in the northern Tigray region as tensions resurface there. The BBC's Michael Teferi has more details.
Airline staff were told not to report to work. Passengers were notified via text message, citing unforeseen circumstances. It comes amid fears of a renewed conflict between Tigrayan forces and the Ethiopian federal government. A 2022 peace deal ended a war over Tigray that killed 500,000 people, but disagreements have remained, including over disputed territories and delays to disarming of Tigrayan forces. One resident of Mekelle said hundreds of people queued today to withdraw money, but that many banks were out of cash.
Venezuela's interim president, Delcy Rodriguez, has signed a law that opens the country's oil industry to private investors. The move has reversed decades of tight state control. The U.S. demanded the move after capturing Venezuela's president, Nicolas Maduro, earlier this month. Rodriguez explains the significance of the change.
This law allows us to make the truly qualitative historical leap to turn those oil reserves, the largest on the planet, into the greatest happiness a people can have, with the Venezuelan people as the rightful holders of that happiness.
Financial indicators at this hour: $1 in Nigeria is trading at 1,391 naira, Botswana 12.93, Kenya 128 shilling 11, Zambia 19 kwacha 79. BRICS countries: $1 in Brazil is at 5 real 20, Russia 75 rubles 78, India 91 rupee 92, China 6 yuan 95, South Africa 15 rand 73 cents. $1 is 72 pence to the British pound and 84 to the euro. Commodities: gold is trading at $5,183, platinum at $2,494 per ounce. The price of Brent crude oil is $69.96 a barrel. That's all for now. For any business stories you'd like to share with us, please send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za, or you can call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa Business, I am Chanduko Ligege.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
Now, let's start in South Africa now, where the country's Reserve Bank has decided to keep the repo rate unchanged at 6.75% following its latest Monetary Policy Committee MPC meeting. Now, the decision was not unanimous, as 2 MPC members voted for a 25 basis points, that's a 0.25% cut, whilst 4 opted to hold rates steady. The Reserve Bank Governor, Lesetja Kganyago, says that the bank's quarterly projection model continues to point to gradual interest rate cuts as inflation eases, with policy remaining moderately restrictive for now. He added that interest rates are expected to reach neutral levels by 2027, stressing that the projected rate path remains a broad guide, with future decisions taken meeting by meeting, and also guided by economic data and risks to the outlook. Channel Africa's economics reporter Innocent Samosa has more for us.
Over the past year, the rand and oil prices have moved around quite a bit. The Reserve Bank says its forecasts are based on the assumption that both will stay close to where they ended 2025. The good news, though, is on inflation. Expectations have come down, with the latest survey showing long-term inflation expectations at record lows. According to Reserve Bank Governor Lesetja Kganyago, this does not mean inflation is running away.
Our baseline is that inflation will converge to target by 2028. It will be bang on target, 3% in 2028. But the trend, last year we came out with an average of 3.2. At the November meeting, we expected growth this year to average 3.5. We have revised that a bit. We think that it will average 3.3. And in 2027, we expect that it will go to 3.2, 3.1, and then in 2028, we will then be bang on target.
One of the big talking points this week has been the strength of the rand. Reserve Bank Governor Lesetja Kganyago outlined the key factors behind the recent trend.
The first one you had identified, which was dollar weakness. And of course, with the dollar weakness, we saw that the dollar had weakened against major currencies. But the rand didn't just strengthen against the dollar. It strengthened against many other currencies too, and it's the second best performing currency in the emerging market universe. That then talks to what the pull factors are. Now, with people looking to diversify out of the weakening dollar, they have been buying gold. We are no longer the biggest producer of gold, but we still produce gold. And mines that might have looked unprofitable 2 years, 3 years ago have suddenly become profitable as gold has experienced safe haven flows.
The Reserve Bank says it would like to see service inflation move closer to 3% as lower inflation become the new norm for South Africa. David Falks is the advisor of the governor.
We had oil price deflation wearing off. So there was very, very low oil price moves, so deflation in oil prices, and then that faded to about zero, and that pushed inflation up a little bit. But this is kind of a classic example of something that moves in and out of the base and doesn't have long-term effects. And that's why it makes sense to be coming from a 3.6, but we see inflation slowing during this year that we're in now.
The Reserve Bank says it will continue to closely monitor economic developments, stressing that future interest rate decisions will remain guided by incoming data and inflation risks. For Channel Africa News, I'm Innocent Samosa in Johannesburg, South Africa.
Right, still quite a bit to come on Rise and Shine. We'll be telling you a little bit more about the interviews that we're going to be doing in the next hour. But taking you back in time, 2011 on this day, South Sudan, the country now known as South Sudan, that portion of Sudan held a referendum, and the Referendum Commission released the preliminary results of the historic independence vote. The data showed that an overwhelming 98.83% of voters were in favor of seceding from Sudan. And that milestone, of course, paved the way for the formal declaration of independence on July the 9th, 2011, marking South Sudan as the world's newest and youngest country. And there was so much hope at the time, but sadly it has become a very sad story in terms of continued strife, civil war, and displacement. But we live in hope.
We became 55
yes.
nations instead of 53.
There you go.
Ukatili wa kijinsia unaharibu maisha na kutenga jamii. Hutokea nyumbani, shuleni, kazini na mara nyingi kwa ukimya. Lakini hauwezi kuendelea. Ukiona, ongea. Ikiwa unaumia, funguka, kwa sababu kutofanya lolote sio chaguo. Sikiliza vituo vyote 19 vya redio kuanzia Jumatano ya tarehe 23 Julai kwenye mijadala, ushauri, tamthilia, maonyesho ya elimu na mahojiano na wataalamu, manusura, watunga sheria na nchi nzima iliyoathirika na ukatili wa kijinsia kwenye vituo vyako pendwa vya redio. Piga simu 0800 428 ili kuripoti unyanyasaji au kupata msaada. GBV ikomeshwe na wewe. Ujumbe huu umeletwa kwenu na shirika la SABC.
Wake up to the essence of the continent. Rise and shine on Channel Africa.
Microsoft and the South African public broadcaster, the SABC, have launched an artificial intelligence or AI education service on the SABC Plus platform. Microsoft South Africa CEO Vukani Mngadi says the launch of this program will go a long way in ensuring future employment for the youth in the country. He says this offering on the public broadcaster's platform is a survival responsibility for the nation. Mngadi was speaking at the Microsoft's AI Tour 2026 conference at the Sandton Convention Center. Notando Magutulela reports.
In 2025, Microsoft invested a further 5.4 billion rand to build more data center infrastructure in South Africa. This is in addition to the 20.4 billion rand already invested in the country over the past 3 years to establish the country's first data centers in Johannesburg and Cape Town. Additionally, the company announced that it will assist in the training and certification on cloud architecture, AI, and cybersecurity. On Thursday, Microsoft, in collaboration with the SABC, announced the launch of the Artificial Intelligence AI Education Service on the SABC Plus platform. Microsoft South Africa CEO Vukani Mngadi.
Our point of view is if we skill our people now with the right type of tools in technology, because we know this tech is going to revolutionize how we think, we can therefore be ahead of the game as opposed to catching up. Because if we play catch up, unfortunately we're going to impact our unemployment even worse. So we want to make sure that this country is not a laggard, but we take advantage of an early start, so we give our people at least a bit of a leg up in terms of understanding and therefore employability. We know for a fact that AI is going to change how me and you think, me and you work and live, how we run business processes, how we serve customers, how we actually do work.
Microsoft aims to educate the youth of South Africa on the basics of AI in a world where work and industries will be underpinned by artificial intelligence. Last year, the company was able to train more than 1.4 million people in AI fluency in the country. With a collaboration with the SABC at hand, Microsoft SA hopes to train even more South Africans. SABC COO Lungile Benza says the public broadcaster is excited about this collaboration and looks forward to continue to educate as part of SABC's mandate. Benza says the AI service is already available on the public broadcaster's SABC Plus platform and can be enjoyed in the comfort of one's home at no cost.
It's already available. You go onto SABC Plus now, you download it, you go onto it, you log in, and then voila, there is the AI fluency material and content from Microsoft. It is available immediately, and remember, it is available for free as long as you've got connectivity and data.
Nothando Makutulela in Johannesburg.
So, as we're talking with your day in history back in 2011 about countries that are springing up and becoming new countries on the continent, we know that also 2025 there were talks of Somaliland doing its own thing. What do you think are the chances that in this year we might have 56 or 55
I cannot
states?
see Somalia allowing that to happen. So I think as much as they might huff and puff, I think Somaliland will always be part of Somalia. Puntland is interesting. They also, but they don't want to be independent. And it's the same region, but they want to be a federal area within the greater Somalia. So it's interesting that you've got these two regions, but Somaliland actually functions like a country. It's got its own currency, its own passport. So by and large, actually, it behaves, looks, feels as if it's a country. So while they're not getting the recognition and the status, they actually are behaving like a country. And so it'll be interesting. But I doubt that Somalia
So you
will
say
let
the
it go.
chances are quite low.
I think they're about zero.
In 2026 we'll have a new country on the continent.
I think Manchester United will win the Premier League before Somaliland gets its independence. I just can't see it happening. What is interesting also is that whilst we say 54 countries in Africa, some people say 55 because of Morocco and the issue of Western Sahara, the Western Sahara Arab Republic. So many people recognize that, even though it's not internationally recognized as the 55th country in Africa. So there you go.
All right, I guess you're taking us to the next hour.
Yes, indeed. We are looking forward to the next hour because there's quite a few people that we're going to be chatting to. We'll tell you and give you a little bit more detail on that. But one of them is a story that we tried to do yesterday about Nigeria and the informal settlement around Lagos. But more details on that. You are listening to Rise and Shine right here on Channel Africa, broadcasting on channelafrica.co.za from Johannesburg, South Africa, with Peter Ndoro and Asanda Beda. It's 7 o'clock. Here's the news with Onelin Sinsi.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Peter. Burkina Faso's military-led government has dissolved all political parties and has scrapped the legal framework that's governing their operations. The decision by the military rulers who seized power in September 2022 is the latest move to tighten control following the suspension of political activities after the coup. Burkina Faso's Interior Minister Mila Zebo said the decision was part of a broader effort to rebuild the state after what he said was widespread abuses and dysfunction in the country's multi-party system. Islamist militants backed by armed drones had raided an army base in Nigeria's northeastern Borno state, killing several troops in the early hours of yesterday. The military said this is the second assault reported there this week. The use of drones by the fighters from Islamic State West Africa province in recent attacks has marked a significant escalation in the violence in the region. Two security sources told Reuters that at least 9 soldiers and 2 task force members were killed, with around 16 others wounded. South Sudan's ZAMB opposition party says it's been involved in heavy fighting with government forces in Jonglei State. The Sudan People's Liberation Movement in opposition described the confrontation as brutal and said it could prove to be decisive. The South Sudanese military said it was trying to recapture all areas controlled by the opposition. The two warring parties are factions of the movement that led South Sudan to independence in 2011. The chairperson of the civil society network in Jonglei State, Bol Dang Bol, says many civilians have fled the clashes.
Of course, as a result, always civilians are being displaced and civilian infrastructure are being destroyed. This is actually what is generally happening. Many have fled these areas, so displacement is still massive, even more massive amid the conflict.
The Madlanga Commission in South Africa says significant progress has been made following the establishment of a task team assigned with implementing the Commission's recommendations to the President, Cyril Ramaphosa. The task team was established after the Commission's interim report referred 5 senior South African Police Service officials for investigation, including the KwaZulu-Natal Hawks head Lesetja Sinona. The amended deadline for the Commission's final report is the 17th of March this year. The Commission is probing allegations of criminality, corruption and political interference in the police and criminal justice system. However, the Commission's spokesperson Jeremy Michael says it is expected that Justice Madlanga and President Cyril Ramaphosa will engage further on a possible extension, given the lengthy list of witnesses who are still to testify.
There will be engagement between Justice Madlanga and the President regarding the time that the Commission requires, because, as we have said in recent days, since the Commission resumed its hearings for 2026, there is a very long list of witnesses who need to appear before the Commission. There's a long list of witnesses who are under subpoena. The Commission has to be fair to witnesses and ensure that proper process is followed.
And lastly, U.S. President Donald Trump has declared Cuba a threat to his country's security. He has signed an executive order to enable trade tariffs to be imposed on any country that sells or provides oil to the Caribbean island. The order accuses Havana of assisting transnational terrorist groups in countries that Trump considers hostile to the U.S., including Russia, China, and Iran. Now, for any news stories you'd like to share with us, please send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us at +27 11 714 4459. Channel Africa News, I'm Onele Tsinzi.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
And coming up in your sports news this hour, South Africa Sports Minister Gayton McKenzie gives an update regarding the 2028 AFCON bid, while Arina Sabalenka and Elena Rybakina will face off in the final of the women's singles at the Australian Open. I'll tell you more at 7:30.
Wherever the hour finds you, across the world, here's your morning African lens on the world's leading story. This is Rise and Shine on Channel Africa, the African Perspective.
7:05, we now enter the second hour of Rise and Shine, and thank you for choosing us to wake up with as Channel Africa. From the African perspective, we bring you news and current affairs as the show broadcasting live from South Africa in Johannesburg, and that's me, Asanda Beda, and my co-host Peter Ndoro. Good morning.
A very good morning and happy Friday.
Happy Friday, happy month end, happy end of the week,
Absolutely.
Happy whatever else it is.
I wish we had better stories, happy stories for a Friday, but you know, the state of the continent, unfortunately. We're going to go to Niger this hour because gunfights and explosions were heard near Niamey's biggest airport, and we're going to try and find out what's going on. Then this has been the biggest security threat in recent months, so we'll find out and get some analysis on that.
Also, Uganda's post-election coverage continues, and this time it's drawn international concern. There are reports coming from the country of opposition supporters being arrested and charged, a blanket internet shutdown limiting access to critical information. We thought that would have been lifted by now fully, but clearly it hasn't. enforced disappearances and political figures reminiscent of abuses after previous elections. We'll be speaking to Deputy Director of the Africa Division at Human Rights Watch on that one, giving you the latest. Connect with us on channelafrica.co.za, on the SABC Plus app via mobile phones, as well as live streaming on YouTube at Channel Africa 1.
Je, una jambo lolote akilini mwako? Je, una shauku kuhusu masuala muhimu? Na je, una maoni ambayo unataka yasikike? Kweli, hili jukwaa ni la kwako. Piga simu au tuandikie kwenda WhatsApp namba alama ya kujumulisha 2760552594 na tutakupigia simu.
Mtangazaji wa habari zetu za Afrika Kusini mjini Johannesburg.
Hivyo unaweza kuwa mshirika kwenye matangazo yetu. Sio mazungumzo tu, ni fursa yako ya kuchangia maoni yako na kushirikiana na jumuiya ya wasikilizaji wanaotamani mtazamo wako. Tufuate kwenye mitandao ya kijamii. Tembelea tovuti yetu www.channelafrica.co.za na uwe tayari kushiriki na kuchangia maoni yako kwenye Channel Africa. Channel Africa, mtazamo wa Kiafrika.
From Cape to Cairo, Dakar to Dar es Salaam, rise and shine with Peter Ndoro and Asanda Beda on Channel Africa.
Uganda's post-election period has drawn international concern, with reports of opposition supporters being arrested and charged, a blanket internet shutdown limiting access to critical information, and enforced disappearances of political figures reminiscent of abuses after previous elections. To help us unpack these developments and their implications for human rights, we joined now by Ashwani Bodu-Schultz, Deputy Director of the Africa Division at Human Rights Watch. Ashwani, thank you for joining us. Good morning.
Good morning to you, Asanda and Peter, and happy Friday. But we are talking on a very sad issue, unfortunately, and good morning to listeners also.
Right, unfortunately. How serious is the human rights situation in Uganda following the elections?
So we recently did some research that we released yesterday. And obviously, there were violations ongoing before the elections that we've been researching on. For instance, there was the arrest of Sarah Biriti, who was unfortunately granted bail a few days ago, but she still can't leave the country without permission. The government had suspended at least 10 NGOs in the lead up to the elections, and then there was the blanket internet shutdown. And what we found in our most recent research is that they have intensified the attacks on the country's main opposition party, which is the National Unity Party, since the presidential elections took place on January 15. They have conducted mass arrests of NUP supporters and forcibly displaced 2 senior leaders who still remain missing. And since January 15, the military has laid siege to the home of Robert Kyagulanyi, who's also known as Bobby Wine and the main presidential opposition to Museveni. They have assaulted his wife and staff. They have destroyed property. And this is something that is to alarming levels, right? And they need to stop cracking down on dissent and ensure that people with opposing views are safe. On January 16, Wine posted that he had managed, fortunately, to escape his home after the soldiers raided his home and switched off electricity and CCTV cameras, and he has been in hiding since. However, just over a week later, on January 23rd, he posted on X that another group of armed men raided his home again in his absence. And he posted 4 photographs of the evidence. And then there's a video of his wife, Barbara, also on YouTube. I don't know if you saw that, but she was talking to the media. And she said, she spoke about how men grabbed her by her hair, tore her clothing, sat on her, and demanded that they open her phone, which she obviously refused. And at the moment, I think the main problem Uganda has is President Museveni's son, who's Muhoozi, who's also the head of the Ugandan military, and he has threatened to kill Kyagulanyi. So, but however, he has denied that the soldiers attacked his wife. So that one we did not investigate any further. So that's one instance of Bobby Wine. But then again, about the two MPs who we are qualifying as being enforced disappeared. There's firstly Jolly Jacqueline Mushaba, who is the opposition party's deputy president for Western Uganda. Her daughter spoke to us and told us that 7 armed men in military uniforms raided the hotel room and held them all at gunpoint. The people who were raiding them told them to kneel down, to put their hands up, their phones away. And then they confiscated election-related documents, money, and ordered Tukamashaba to go with them, put her in a van, which in Uganda is commonly known as a drone, and they drove off with her, and she hasn't heard from her mother since. And the second person who we are also said has been disappeared forcefully is David Louis Rubongoya, who's the National Unity Platform Secretary General. So it was reported that a group of armed men had taken the party's deputy president for Northern Uganda, whose name is Lina Zidrigawaru, from her house on the outskirts of Kampala. We spoke to her son, and they told us also that he has not heard from his mother since. So for us, these are 2 instances. We haven't been able to investigate others, qualify as enforced disappearances. And Uganda does have an appalling record of conducting enforced disappearances, yeah.
What are the legal reasons that are being given? I mean, if the army or the authorities in the country can be as bold enough to even say, this is the figure of people that we've arrested. They said over 100 opposition supporters have been charged with election-related offences. Are there genuine legal cases? I mean, if they could speak out and say, these are the amount of people we've arrested, and we'll touch on those that they said they have been killed. Why would they not then also explain what is the legal standing on these?
So Muhoozi actually said that they killed about 20 people out and brazen. He was not scared of saying, and he was warning opposition when he told them that. We haven't done investigation in that as of yet, and even into the arrests. It's a bit difficult to get information at the moment, even if you are in the country, because people are scared to speak about the different incidences. So the internet shutdown has had an impact for us doing research even now, because if there was no internet shutdown, and let's say there was the allegations of protest and people being killed, the media could be there, and the media would live stream, the events that are happening. So you would actually have footage, you would be able to see what was happening, you would actually be able to be informed that this actually happened. But at the moment, we are hearing cases of incidences, but there's no evidence that's available publicly of that happening, and we'll have to do further investigation on that. For the arbitrary arrests, so that also we have not been able to track in detail, because they are different. They have been arrested in different places, right? In some places, they were just arrested on that day, and then they are being brought to court for the court to just let them go, because there were no charges against them. But for others, they are trumped up charges, obviously. So that's why we qualify them arbitrary arrests, because there's no legally justifiable reason as to why they are being arrested.
Are the people of Uganda asking questions, though, specifically around those who have been killed? Authorities saying around 22. Human Rights Watch says it could be even high as 30, even higher. Are the people of Uganda questioning, first of all, the figure and what is behind this in terms of silencing dissent?
So we haven't done our investigation as to the numbers yet, just to clarify that. This is just what Ndoro said in a press statement. So we've spoken to a few partners, to a few civil society activists in Uganda, and actually some of them we spoke to are no longer even in Uganda because they feared, right, for their life, and they've left. Sarah Biriti being arrested sent a chilling message to many prominent activists who have kind of started to lay low, or they've gone out of the country at the moment. So the civil society organization, remember I told you, like just before the elections, at least 10 civil society organizations were shut down. So they can't operate because their funds have been frozen. And these are the partners we would actually have relied on generally, who would provide us with on-the-ground information. So that has also created an information gap where local CSOs who would usually be working on these issues cannot undertake investigations. I spoke to an activist from Uganda, and they told me that people are scared. People are very scared to speak about what happened, but also they're scared of what Muhoozi can do. They don't know how he would react to people coming out and speaking against him and what his unit has done. There have been, like I said, Barbara, who's Bobby Wine's wife, she spoke out against what happened to her to the media. But I think these are high-profile figures, right? They are protected to some extent, even though they are actually also putting them more at risk. But they are high-profile figures. They can't just disappear without no one knowing. The international community would know. There would be some noise. There would be, like you would reach out to the UN or the AU to make calls for them. But I'm talking about these two NUP members who were abducted that I haven't heard much about it internationally. So maybe there's a gap in terms of information that is coming out of Uganda that could help advocacy. And that is because, firstly, for me, I would say the internet shutdown that led to people not having information in real time about what's happening. And then secondly, civil society organizations being shut down in the country. I think they knew what they were doing when they asked these civil society organizations to cease their operations. They were cutting the arms of the people in a sense.
So from within the country, there's a challenge in getting the correct information or even any information. Then from Uganda's international partners, also their hands are kind of tied. As you mentioned, that international internet shutdown is impacting the gathering of that information and the distribution thereof. But what can Human Rights Watch do? Do they have some power over tackling this particular issue of information?
Let me take you back to the statement you were saying, how the internet shutdown has made some international partners a bit helpless. So when the elections were happening, we wrote to one of the international partners in Uganda. And the email we got back was so sad. It was like they're not operating because of the internet shutdown. So these are the partners we would have reached out to usually. And obviously, you know, the human rights landscape and the political landscape at the moment is shifting. Right. So we would have gone to the US, we would have gone to the UK, we would have gone to the EU, but we are working through our advocates in different capitals to try and push. And we have advocates who work with the EU, and we're actually trying to engage with the EU a little bit. But again, this is also the Western approach, no? Yeah. And this is something we would not want all the time. We would want it to be like bottom up. But the question is, who does Museveni listen to? And this is something we've been struggling to find the answer to at the moment. It's been challenging for us.
Right. We're going to have to leave it there, Ashwani. Thank you so much for your insights and updating us on this issue.
Thank you, Asanda. Have a good day.
You do the same as well. Ashwani Badu-Schultz is Deputy Director of the Africa Division at Human Rights Watch, speaking to us about concerns over Uganda's post-election environment. Of course, the big question being exactly that. Who is President Yoweri Museveni listening to? As much as people, the international community as well as Human Rights Watch may want to intervene here, he also had pledged to curb abuses by security forces. We don't know whether that is something that Ugandans are seeing happening or being fulfilled on the ground.
As the sun rises on 2026, Channel Africa celebrates with you. This year, may prosperity flow like water. May unity strengthen our nations. And may every African story inspire the world.
Channel Afrique vous accompagne dans cette célébration. Que l'espoir illumine notre continent.
Que as vozes de África ecoem com orgulho.
Ustawi na ufanisi na vitililike kama maji.
From all of us at Channel Africa, we wish you and yours a joyful and prosperous 2026.
Channel Africa, the African perspective.
Get Channel Africa on DSTV Audio Bouquet. Channel 802.
Explosions and heavy gunfire erupted overnight near Diori Hamani International Airport in Niamey, Niger's capital, marking one of the most serious security incidents in months. Armed gunmen launched a prolonged assault on the Air Force base housed within the airport complex, which is now a hub for Niger's fight against insurgent groups in the Sahel. The country's military leadership, which seized power in a 2023 coup, has blamed external actors, even as analysts point to jihadist groups targeting newly acquired military assets. With us now to unpack what happened and what it means for security in Niger and across the Sahel, we're joined by Ulf Leysing, who's director of the Sahel program at the Konrad Adenauer Foundation. Very good morning to you and welcome, Ulf. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning. Thanks.
What have you been able to establish and find out about these explosions and this gunfire at Niamey International Airport?
Yeah, it was an attack by jihadists, which have been haunting the country for several years, and they chose a high-profile target, the airport in the capital, to damage the government's reputation, a military government who claims that they've been improving security, and they specifically were trying to, take out, Turkish drones Niger has bought to fight jihadists. The drones are the way to go in the Sahel because they don't have, airplanes, and drones are much more convenient. So that was the idea of the jihadists, to embarrass the government and try to hit the drones stationed at the military part of the airport.
So Niger's military government has made accusations that external governments may be involved in this. From your perspective, how credible could this allegation be, or what alternative explanations are there?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, the government tends to blame most of its problem on France, the former colonial power. They have a very poisonous relationship, and also some neighbors such as Benin. But yet they don't, command jihadists. So I don't think there's base to that allegation. It was, it was a jihadist group, and they have been fighting the country for many years now, and I don't think there was a government involved.
All right. So, what does this mean for security in the country? I know that kicking out France and starting this process of distancing themselves, we saw other players come into the region, like Russia. Has Niger's security situation weakened with its distancing itself from France?
Yeah, there's a clear link. I mean, the French, they had jets at the airport and were supporting Nigerian forces. I mean, that link is now missing. That's why they bought the drones. But surely the French, you can criticize them for many things. The way they're being perceived as being arrogant and commanding, but they were actually helping fight jihadists by not just providing training and equipment, but actually fighting with their jets they had, and also, boots on the ground. So since the French left in 23, security has been worsening. There have been attacks in several parts of the country. Last year we had a kidnapping in central Niamey of an American, so that clearly shows that security has been worsening.
So this was a high-value target. What does it tell us about the militants' evolving capacity and maybe intent?
Yeah, they must have had some inside information to know where exactly to strike, and it shows they're getting bolder. Not just in Niger, also we had jihadists in the neighbor country, Mali, Bamako, the capital where I'm based, and 24, they also attacked the airport, and they're currently, trying to, block fuel supplies to the capital. So they're getting bolder, and they choose these, high-value targets to basically signal the governments that they can strike wherever they want, that nobody is safe.
And having removed themselves from ECOWAS, what does that mean for support?
Yeah, it's they have difficult relations with ECOWAS, members such as Cote d'Ivoire or Benin. They're southern neighbors. I mean, so there's not so much cooperation as it used to be. They've, reinforced cooperation, among the other Sahel states, also run by the military, Burkina Faso and Mali. They face the same challenges, but in a way they cut themselves off a bit from cooperation with ECOWAS countries, and especially they have poisonous relation with southern neighbor Benin. The border has been closed since the military coup in Niger, and that is also complicating trade.
So, do the authorities have the capacity to fight back, or if they don't get urgent help, could we see an escalation?
Yeah, I mean, this idea to buy Turkish drones was a good one because they're easier to operate than airplanes, and that's especially in desert terrain, they're very efficient. So, in a way, they try to do what they can. There will be more of such incidents. I don't think that Niger will fall. I mean, the jihadists don't have the capacity to run a capital or take over the country. They like to do this hit and run attacks, so probably nothing is going to happen for a while, and then a few months there could be more of these high-profile attacks. But they won't be running the country. But definitely they're embarrassing the government and seeking to control or de facto control parts of the country, maybe the border region with Mali or Burkina Faso in the countryside.
All right, and that's where we're going to have to leave it. Thank you so much indeed for joining us, Ulf, and giving us some analysis on this developing story.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
That's Ulf Leising, who's director of the Sahel program at the Konrad Adenauer Foundation, speaking to us about this fighting and these explosions that were heard at Diori Hamani International Airport in Niamey, Niger's capital. And we're being told that there's a military base there, Air Force base, and drones were the target of these militants because the Niger authorities have been using those a little bit more than planes because they're simpler to use, and so the militants decided to hit it, and that's what we're seeing. Okay, let's move on. It's 7:30. Here are your news headlines with Onelen Sinsi.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Peter. Burkina Faso military-led government has dissolved all political parties and scrapped the legal framework governing their operations. The decision by the military rulers who seized power in September 2022 is the latest move to tighten control following the suspension of political activities following the coup. A new witness will testify before the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry in Pretoria, South Africa this morning. President Cyril Ramaphosa established the commission following the KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi's allegations, including that of corruption amongst senior police officials. And the US President Donald Trump has declared Cuba as a threat to his country's security. Channel Africa News, I'm Onelen Tsinsi.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
Let's check in with what's happening in the world of sports as we say good morning again to Musibudi Makura.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Thank you so much, Asanda. A very good morning once again from the Sports Desk. We'll start with the story. So South Africa's Minister of Sports, Arts and Culture, Gayton McKenzie, has vowed to bring the Africa Cup of Nations back to South Africa in 2028. McKenzie has already openly expressed interest in bidding to host the 2028 AFCON. This after the Confederation of African Football confirmed in December that they will be shifting the biennial event to a quadrennial showpiece from 2028. So speaking exclusively to SABC Sport, the minister believes it's high time the country actually applies to host the Continental Football Championship, having previously stepped in at the 11th hour to host the tournament back in 2013.
The African Cup of Nations should come here. It has been, if we don't host it in 2028, then it will go 2 decades without us having the African Cup of Nations this side. You must know we've never applied for African Cup of Nations. The last time it was held here, we were standing in. So the time has come for us to apply and to get it. It's definitely coming. I mean, Bafana is on a roll.
Well, with the 1st of February bidding deadline fast approaching, McKenzie further confirmed a joint bid alongside Namibia, Botswana and potentially even Lesotho, as well as Mozambique, will be formalized this week.
Yeah, the deadline is Sunday. Tomorrow we will be putting in our official the intention to host it. And we want to host it with Namibia, want to host it with Botswana. Lesotho has now sent me a letter. They also want to be part of it. Mozambique. So the more the merrier. We can share the games. But for me, Southern Africa, Kinako, it's no time. It's our time.
On to this now. The CAF Champions League continues this weekend with match day 4 of the group stages as clubs across the continent enter a decisive phase in a race for plans in the quarterfinals. So with the competition now at its halfway point, as the 3 rounds of matches have been played, the frontrunners are now seeking to consolidate their positions while chasing teams want now to revive their qualification hopes. So all eyes in Group A will be on Cairo on Sunday, the 1st of February, where the defending champions Pyramids FC will host RS Bakan of Morocco. Elsewhere in the group, Rivers United of Nigeria will face off with Power Dynamos of Zambia. Meanwhile, in Group B, Young Africans of Tanzania welcome reggae champions Al Ahly of Egypt on Saturday, with the Egyptian side targeting a win to move closer to securing qualification. Later on in the evening, AS FAR Rabat of Morocco will face off with JS Kabylie for a place of hoping to qualify for the quarterfinals of the CAF Champions League. Meanwhile, Group C action gets underway today as Al Hilal face Mamelodi Sundowns in a top-of-a-table clash. The two sides are separated by just a goal difference, with the South Africans Sundowns leading the group and Al Hilal close behind. On Sunday, MC Alger of Algeria will host Saint Elu Lupopo of the Democratic Republic of Congo. So Lupopo are holding a narrow advantage. The fixture also offers MC Alger a final chance now to re-enter the qualification race. Group D fixtures will begin on Saturday with Petro de Luanda of Angola welcoming Stade Milan of Mali. Stade Milan currently top the group, and another positive result would then further strengthen their grip on a quarter-final place. And then on Sunday, Simba SC of Tanzania hosts Esperance de Tunis of Tunisia in a fixture that could prove decisive in shaping the group stages, the standings rather, should I say, as the battle for qualification intensifies. And finally, Arina Sabalenka will face Elina Rybakina in the Women's Australian Open final tomorrow. The Women's Singles Championship match has a familiar feel in a rematch of the 2023 edition, with the stakes as high as ever in the season's first Grand Slam tournament. So neither woman have dropped a set on their way to the final, where Sabalenka returns for a 4th year in a row. The world number 1 can tie Martina Hingis as well as Martina Navratilova should she clinch her 3rd title in 4 editions at Melbourne Park. Let's hear though from Elina Rybakina, who's looking forward to the rematch.
Yeah, it was a great battle we played, and I think just in the end she played a bit better, and she won that match, very deserved. And I'm just, I want to enjoy, that's for sure, the final. And hopefully I'm going to serve better than today, and it's going to help me, and we'll see. But I'm so excited to play.
All right, so that match kicks off at 10:30 a.m. Central African time tomorrow morning. Both players vying, of course, for that trophy out at Melbourne Park. Meanwhile, on the go at the moment, it is semi-final day of the Australian Open. When you look at the men's singles, at the moment, Carlos Alcaraz, world number one, up against Alexander Zverev. It was Carlos Alcaraz who won the first set 6-4. At the moment, it's 6-all in the second set, meaning, of course, it's going to a tie break. It is 7:37 a.m. Central African time. That concludes your sports news this hour. I do return in the final hour of Africa Rise and Shine for yet another sport update. If you do want to share any stories with us, do send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za. Remember as well to give us a call. The newsroom line is +27 11714 4459. For Channel Africa Sport, I am Musibudi Makura.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
1981, the Matola raid in Mozambique, South Africa, in a cross-border operation during the height of the anti-apartheid struggle. South African Defence Force commandos attacked several houses in Matola, which is a suburb of Maputo in Mozambique, and the houses were occupied by members of the African National Congress, the ANC. The raid resulted in the deaths of 12 ANC members and a Portuguese citizen, while the South African Defence Force lost 3 soldiers. Now, this event intensified regional tensions and highlighted the total strategy of the apartheid government to strike liberation movements in neighbouring frontline states. And this is a day that is remembered quite a bit by not just the African National Congress, but I think the country in general, given the role that these cadres played in bringing liberation to South Africa. So today, 1981, the Matola raid took place in Mozambique. South African Defence Forces going into Mozambique and killing 12 ANC members and a Portuguese citizen. Coming up, the business news. Stay with us for that.
The whole population of Africa has been shocked to the depth of its soul.
For 60 years, Channel Africa has been the voice that connects the continent, telling our stories and sharing our vision with the world. This year, we mark 6 decades of broadcast excellence.
60 years of stories, sound, and connection.
6 years of African conversations that matter.
This is 60 years of broadcast excellence.
Rooted in Africa's heartbeat and looking boldly into the future. Join Channel Africa as we celebrate 60 years of broadcasting. Still strong, still vibrant, and still giving you the African perspective.
Channel Africa.
New day, new stories. Start your morning right with Rise and Shine on Channel Africa.
Right, let's catch up with the business news now. Here's Chanduko Ligege.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Peter. Good morning. South African Reserve Bank Governor Lesitsha Kganyago says if the rand continues to strengthen and oil prices continue to drop, more interest cuts can be expected this year. This after the bank's Monetary Policy Committee decided to keep rates unchanged. This has left the repo rate steady at 6.75% and the prime lending rate at 10.25%. The bank says inflation has reached its peak for the year and is expected to remain under control. Kganyago made the rate announcement in Pretoria.
We assess the risks to the inflation outlook as balanced. Against this backdrop, the MPC decided to keep the policy rate unchanged at 6.75%. 2 members favored a cut of 25 basis points, while 4 preferred a hold. The quarterly projection model continues to forecast gradual rate cuts as inflation subsides.
The South African Federation of Trade Unions, SAFTU, has called for urgent intervention in halting what it calls deindustrialization, factory closures and the wholesaling of the country's economy. The Trade Union Federation has criticized plans by the British American Tobacco to shut down its local manufacturing plant at the end of the year. The company cited criminal syndicates dominating the industry as the main reason, with illicit cigarettes now accounting for 75% of the market. SAFTU General Secretary Zulinzima Vavi says they've also taken issue with the Tobacco Products and Electronic Delivery Systems Control Bill that is currently up for consideration in Parliament.
Parliament must not pass, we repeat, the Tobacco Control Bill in its current form. The process must be halted immediately. This bill will weaken legal producers, will strengthen illicit and criminal operators, will accelerate factory closures, and will finish off the thousands of remaining manufacturing jobs. You cannot regulate compliant companies out of existence whilst criminals operate freely.
Ghana's cedi is expected to weaken further next week on firm corporate demand, while Nigeria's naira is seen holding steady and Kenya's shilling is likely to remain stable, reflecting mixed currency trends across sub-Saharan Africa. The cedi is forecast to depreciate in the coming week, pressured by steady corporate demand from the energy, services and construction sectors. According to London Stock Exchange data, yesterday the cedi traded at 10.97 compared to 10.85 a week ago. A trader at Stanbic Bank Ghana, Ronald Mensah, says the cedi remains under mild pressure with foreign exchange demand persistently outpacing supply. He further notes that while the central bank's foreign exchange spot auctions have provided occasional relief, market tightness persists. In other news, Ethiopian Airlines has cancelled flights from Addis Ababa to several airports in the northern Tigray region as tensions resurface there. The BBC's Michael Teferi has more details.
Airline staff were told not to report to work. Passengers were notified via text message citing unforeseen circumstances. It comes amid fears of a renewed conflict between Tigrayan forces and the Ethiopian federal government. A 2022 peace deal ended a war over Tigray that killed 500,000 people, but disagreements have remained, including over disputed territories and delays to disarming of Tigrayan forces. One resident of Mekelle said hundreds of people queued today to withdraw money, but that many banks were out of cash.
Venezuela's interim president, Delcy Rodriguez, has signed a law that opens the country's oil industry to private investors. The move has reversed decades of tight state control. The U.S. demanded the move after capturing Venezuela's president, Nicolas Maduro, earlier this month. Rodriguez explains the significance of the change.
This law allows us to make the truly qualitative historical leap to turn those oil reserves, the largest on the planet, into the greatest happiness a people can have, with the Venezuelan people as the rightful holders of that happiness.
Financial indicators this morning: $1 in Nigeria is trading at 1,391 naira, Botswana 13 pula 93, Kenya 128 shilling 11, Zambia 19 kwacha 79. BRICS countries: $1 in Brazil is at 5 real 20, Russia 75 rubles 78, in India 91 rupee 92, China 6 yuan 95, South Africa 15 rand 73 cents. $1 is 72 pence to the British pound and 84 to the euro. Commodities: gold is trading at $5,208, platinum at $2,505 per ounce. The price of Brent crude oil is trading at $69.79 a barrel. That's all for now. For any business stories you'd like to share with us, please send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za, or you can call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa Business, I am Chanduko Ligege.
Business News on Channel Africa. The African Perspective. New day, new stories. Start your morning right with Rise and Shine on Channel Africa.
Right, let's take a look at this. It's time for your Friday market update. Global markets have been jittery this week as geopolitical tensions in the Middle East have driven oil prices above $70 a barrel, prompting investors to seek safety in things like gold and reshuffle risk positions. Meanwhile, the world's largest sovereign wealth fund posted a record annual return, led by strong performances in technology and banking sectors. With us to unpack what all of this means for markets, economies and investors here in Africa and globally is Chantal Marks, the head of investment research and content at FNB's Wealth and Investments. Chantal, always good to talk to you. Happy New Year, by the way.
Happy New Year to you as well. It feels late to still say that, but here we are.
Okay, so global markets have been rattled a little bit by tensions in the Middle East. I guess for our listeners, some might be wondering, why does a conflict thousands of kilometers away move prices at the fuel pumps and food markets across Africa?
Well, it's a demand and supply story. So specifically when it comes to tensions in the Middle East, there tends to come supply concerns along with that, because the Middle East is kind of the biggest region in terms of oil production globally. Tensions there can result in an issue when it comes to oil production, or in this case, a movement in oil. And because demand is consistent and potentially even growing, supply issues can result in the price of oil and fuel as a consequence increasing. Now, when we look at the situation specifically as it relates to Iran, it's about the movement of oil. The Strait of Hormuz is around Iran, and it's the only way for oil from the Persian Gulf to get to open waters. And if there are any blockades or military activity there, it becomes very complicated.
Gold is very much in favor at the moment. Investors rushing into gold. What does it tell us about risks out there that they're jumping into gold?
So I think that there are three reasons why investors are moving into gold at the moment and still moving into gold at these very high levels. The first is that safe haven appeal, because there's chaos globally, because there's a lot of uncertainty in financial markets. Investors are moving into gold. The second reason is strategic. Momentum is very strong towards the upside, and traders are taking bets that momentum will persist. And then the third reason is FOMO, fear of missing out. A lot of retail investors will be saying, well, gold is up so much, it's probably going to continue increasing. I don't want to miss out. And they are still pushing their money into the commodity.
So it's interesting what's been happening on the continent. We've seen South Africa's rand strengthen. We've seen inflation slowing. But other parts of the continent are going in a different direction. How do you make sense of this?
Yeah, I mean, when we're looking at the South African rand specifically, the rand has not strengthened that much against currencies other than the US dollar. So there's a measure of US dollar weakness. And then I think the rand stability relative to other currencies really is a function of improving the fundamentals in the South African economy. So there's a real reform agenda that is taking place at the moment. There's quite a measure of political stability that we actually haven't been used to in a while, that is also supporting the currency. And things like gold and PGMs, or commodities like gold and PGMs that are rallying, are really good for South Africa's terms of trade. Now, that's not necessarily the case for every single country on the continent, and that's why you could be seeing that divergence. So if we look, for example, at an oil producer, oil prices have have spiked over the last couple of weeks, but they're actually quite low, and they have been low for quite some time. So in that case, if you're an oil exporter, your terms of trade won't look that great. But for South Africa, as an oil importer and an exporter of commodities, our terms of trade look fantastic, and that supports our currency.
So we've seen strong gains in global tech and banking stocks led by major sovereign wealth funds. What does this signal about where big money is placing its confidence right now?
Yes, it does seem as if sovereign wealth funds generally have performed very well, but I mean, markets generally have performed very well also. And I mean, as you mentioned in your introduction as well, really bolstered by technology investments and a strong performance from banks globally. I think what it tells us about those two sectors are quite limited. Aside from that, there is still loads of investor support out there and big investor support for the technology trade, specifically as it relates to AI and for the relative stability that banks offer globally. I think there's been a lot of changes in the banking industry over the last 2 decades, and really it does seem to be reflected in those companies' profitability and the returns that they're able to offer shareholders. So I would think that support from big investors could potentially continue to drive share prices in that space higher.
Chantal, so much to talk about, but so little time to unpack it all. So we're going to have to leave it there for today. But thanks so much. Your insights always greatly appreciated. And we'll chat again next week.
Thank you. Bye.
Chantal Marks, who's the head of investment research and content at FNB Wealth and Investments, with our Friday Markets Update.
Você é fluente em português? É apaixonado por rádio e quer trabalhar na África do Sul? Você tem documentos que o qualificam para trabalhar na África do Sul? Nesse caso, podemos ter uma oportunidade para você trabalhar no Canal África. Envie seu currículo e demonstração para Canal África at newsroom@channelafrica.co.za. Lembre-se, se você não receber alguma resposta nossa em 14 dias, isso significa que você não foi selecionado. Canal África, a perspectiva africana.
Get Channel Africa on DSTV Audio Bouquet. Channel 802.
Ahead of next month's mining Indaba in Cape Town, South Africa, illegal mining continues to be a major concern across the region. The annual event will see the finalization of an illegal mining compact, a collaborative framework recognizing that illegal mining is not only a regulatory issue, but also a socio-economic challenge. The compact aims to promote sustainable solutions that benefit both local communities and the wider mining sector. For more on this, Colin Dlamini, head of the public affairs at Mining Indaba, joins us now on the line to unpack. Colin, thank you for joining us. A good morning to you.
Good morning, Asanda, and good morning to your listeners. Thank you for having us.
It's our pleasure. Talk to us about the issue of illegal mining in particular, the impact that it has on community safety, on environmental degradation, and just social stability in general.
Thank you. The issue of illegal mining is becoming more of a pandemic now because it is all over. As we've had so much in the news of late, and it's a gateway to a lot of criminality, social ills, and the degradation of the environment, leading to gender-based violence, substance abuse, and it affects the whole ecosystem and not just the mining houses, even the communities, which is why the traditional leaders and the South African network of traditional leaders has come together and say we will not just stand by and watch our communities falter because of illegal mining. We want to be part of the solution, and they are leading this compact, working with mining houses and collaborating with law enforcement agencies. And we believe this is a great initiative because it speaks also to our theme this year, which is stronger together, progress through partnerships. And we cannot solve the issue of illegal mining if we continue in a siloed approach. We need all stakeholders to come together and put shoulder to the wheel to deal with this issue decisively.
So there's certainly hope then in terms of where we can go to deal with this issue. But why has it been so difficult to regulate illegal mining in the country so far?
So first of all, we had policy gaps in terms of regulating artisanal mining and small-scale mining. But we are pleased that the Department of Minerals and Petroleum has published a bill last year where they are actually moving that direction, where they are regulating artisanal mining. And we know that if artisanal mining is formalized and it's more structured, it could lead to more employment and it could alleviate the issues that we're currently facing with illegal mining. So it is a viable alternative.
How much of the illegal mining challenge in the country can be attributed to the issue of undocumented illegal foreign nationals, or what we call zamazamas, as we've seen in previous crackdowns and raids where those individuals were found in these illegal mines?
It's definitely one of the factors. The issue of illegal mining is very complex and multi-layered. And in terms of dealing with the issue of, zamazamas coming from outside of the country, we are pleased that with this compact, we are having more of a pan-African approach where we will have leaders in mining houses and in community and traditional leadership coming from South Africa, Zambia, Lesotho, Botswana, coming together to really see how they can share those learnings, because even other countries have managed to get it right. The issue of migration is not only unique to South Africa, it happens all over the world. But for us to have this issue of zamazamas, really we can't deal with it if we work together with our neighbors in Zambia, Botswana, and Lesotho.
What tangible solutions then can we expect from this annual gathering of the Mining Indaba? It's going to be taking place next month.
Mining Indaba has now become the premier destination for investment. So we will have investors coming from more than 100 countries looking for opportunities in which they could invest in mining. There's also now the issue of critical minerals, which has become very topical at the moment globally. As you know, we're using now critical minerals for all our daily use in smartphones, batteries, electric vehicles, etc. So critical minerals will be discussed a lot. Downstream beneficiation of all those minerals, ensuring that Africa doesn't only become an exporter of minerals, but we also add value to these minerals at source, and we start to export finished products to the world in order to grow our economies, in order to create more jobs. And that is an issue that is really going to be looked at more thoroughly. But also there's a youth program which only focuses on the youth, ensuring that we empower young people in communities.
Colin, thank you so much again for your time. We appreciate it, and all the best for next month at the Mining Indaba. Colin Dlamini is Head of Public Affairs at the Mining Indaba. It's now 8 o'clock. Let's get our news update. We enter the third hour of Rise and Shine, and here's Onele Nzinzi.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Asanda. Burkina Faso's military-led government has dissolved all political parties and scrapped the legal framework governing their operation. The decision by the military rulers who seized power in September 2022 is the latest move to tighten control following the suspension of political activities after the coup. Burkina Faso's Interior Minister Emile Zebo said the decision was part of a broader effort to rebuild the state after what he said was widespread abuses and dysfunction in the country's multi-party system. South Africa's former Public Enterprises Minister Malusi Gigaba is today expected to be back in the Specialised Commercial Crimes Court sitting in the Palm Ridge Magistrate Court east of Johannesburg. This is in relation to the ongoing investigation into alleged corruption at the state-owned railway company Transnet. Gigaba, who was the Public Enterprises Minister between 2010 and 2014, has not been indicted and the matter has not yet been set down for trial. His lawyer, Nicholas Corey, explains.
This appearance is procedural and administrative in nature. It is not a trial. No plea will be entered, no evidence will be led, and no determination of guilt will take place. Dr. Gigaba was served with a charge sheet on the basis of a J175 summons in early November 2025. No indictment has been issued or provided. Dr. Gigaba maintains his innocence and continues to cooperate fully with the legal process. Out of respect for the court, he will not litigate this matter in the media. The matter will be addressed in the appropriate forum and at the appropriate stage of the court process, in accordance with the Constitution and the rule of law.
A new witness will testify before the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry in Pretoria, South Africa this morning. This week, the Commission heard testimony from the KwaZulu-Natal Province Acting Deputy Police Commissioner Anthony Gopal, Witness E, and the province's Head of Priority Crime Investigation, the Hawks Major General Lesetja Senona. President Cyril Ramaphosa established the commission following the KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi's allegations, including that of corruption amongst senior police officials. Sibahle Mota reports.
Acting Deputy Police Commissioner in KwaZulu-Natal, General Anthony Gopal, testified about Police Minister Senzo Mchunu. He told the commission that Minister Mchunu took an interest in the murder of ANC Councillor Phendukani Mabhida. Witness E, who testified after General Gopal, also testified about the minister. He says that Mchunu wanted regular updates on the Sindiso Magaqa murder investigation. Witness E says while Mchunu was interested in the Magaqa investigation, he did not attend any of the court cases pertaining to the matter.
South Sudan's armed opposition party says it's been involved in heavy fighting with government forces in Jonglei State. The Sudan People's Liberation Movement in opposition described the confrontation as brutal and said it could prove to be decisive. The South Sudanese military said it was trying to recapture all areas that were controlled by the opposition. The two warring parties are factions of the movement that led South Sudan to independence in 2011. The chairperson of the civil society network in Jonglei State, Bol Deng Bol, says many civilians have fled the clashes.
Of course, as a result, always civilians are being displaced and civilian infrastructure are being destroyed. This is actually what is generally happening. Many have fled these areas, so displacement is still massive, even more massive amid the conflict.
Lastly, President Donald Trump has declared Cuba as a threat to his country's security. He has signed an executive order enabling trade tariffs to be imposed on any country that sells or provides oil to the Caribbean island. The Trump administration has been trying to choke off its oil supplies, the BBC's Will Grant reports.
The order said that Cuba hosts Russia's largest overseas signals energy facility and also mentioned the island's relations with what it called malign actors adverse to the United States, specifically China, Iran, Hamas and Hezbollah. The other thing the order does is threaten consequences in the form of tariffs against any nation which continues to supply the beleaguered communist-run island with crude oil. Specifically, the intention appears to be to warn off Mexico from replacing Venezuela as the island's principal energy supplier after Nicolas Maduro was forcibly removed from power in Caracas earlier this month.
For any news stories you'd like to share with us, please send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us at +27 11 714 4459. Channel Africa News, I'm Oneli Tsinsi.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
And coming up in your sports news this hour, South Africa's sports minister gives an update regarding the AFCON 2025 bid. At the moment, it's Carlos Akraf up against Alexander Zverev in the first semi-final of the Men's Australian Open. I'll tell you details of these and other stories coming up at 8:30.
Wherever the hour finds you, across the world, he's your morning African lens on the world's leading story. This is Rise and Shine on Channel Africa, the African perspective.
It's the final hour of the Friday edition of Rise and Shine on Channel Africa, where we bring you the African perspective, broadcasting on the internet, channelafrica.co.za, from our studios in Johannesburg in South Africa. A very, very good morning to you, and thank you so much indeed for always making Channel Africa's Rise and Shine the way you start your news day. My name is Peter Ndoro, and I'm with Asanda, Beda, and I say a very good morning to you and happy Friday.
Happy Friday to you too, colleague, and happy Friday to everybody, and good morning if you've just joined us. So as we enter the third hour, one of the stories we'll be going back to is Makoko in Nigeria. We tried to have this conversation yesterday, so we're bringing it back. It also is a conversation that started last week, earlier this week actually, where Nigerian police used tear gas to disperse Makoko residents protesting the demolition of their homes in Lagos. That's an operation that has displaced thousands in one of Africa's largest floating informal settlements. We'll be getting word from the Nigerian Slum Informal Settlement Federation.
And I'll be taking a look at the importance of distance education and its contribution towards education. The African Development Bank saying that education must translate into jobs, economic growth and empowerment. And they were speaking at an education conference. Do you know how many students the University of South Africa has enrolled?
UNISA.
Yeah.
This year, 2026.
Yeah.
I have no idea.
370,000 students. That's scary, hey?
But then is that encompassing the online distance learning?
No, because it is a distance learning university. I think it's the largest correspondence university in the world.
So that is coupling with the campus students, because there are campuses as well.
Some people go to campus. There are some campuses, but I'm not sure that they're UNISA campuses, but say someone like Boston will then help you with your NISA studies.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, but that's a lot, eh?
Yeah, but it makes sense though, because it is a huge institution.
Now think about the poor teachers that have to mark all those papers.
Yeah.
So that's what's coming up on Rise and Shine. Stay with us.
Africa, meet Abedi.
Yeah, that's me.
Abedi is a music lover through and through.
I really love African music.
He's got a taste for all kinds of tunes and spends his days listening to Channel Africa. Guess what? He didn't know.
Okay.
Channel Africa wants to help Abedi and all music lovers everywhere to discover even more incredible music. That is why Channel Africa is calling on all African musicians to submit their music. Musicians, remember to give us all your relevant information. Make your submissions at music@channelafrica.co.za. Submissions are your chance to be heard on radio. But sadly, they do not guarantee that you'll be playlisted. All submissions will be carefully reviewed to see if they meet our station's requirement. Channel Africa, the African perspective. As the sun rises on 2026, Channel Africa celebrates with you. This year, may prosperity flow like water. May unity strengthen our nations. And may every African story inspire the world.
Channel Afrique vous accompagne dans cette célébration. Que l'espoir illumine notre continent.
Que as vozes de África ecoem com orgulho.
From all of us at Channel Africa, we wish you and yours a joyful, successful, and prosperous 2026.
Channel Africa, the African perspective.
Start your day right with Channel Africa Breakfast.
That smells delicious.
Live, 5 days a week.
Get in touch with us at Channel Africa 1. That's our social media handle on Channel Africa. We'd love to hear your questions and your comments. And we are across the various social media platforms. You can find us on X. You can find us on Facebook, on TikTok, on Instagram, as well as on LinkedIn. When was the last time you all were on LinkedIn? I was even saying the other day.
Last night.
I need to check my profile there.
Last night.
Really?
Yeah, but what I'm finding is that these social media platforms, you really have to understand who's there and you engage on that level. So
yeah, it does depend on what you need to engage on. Yeah.
And it is a certain type of person that's on there and the kind of posting. Twitter is violent.
Twitter, I just get fatigued just by thinking about logging in.
And LinkedIn really is quite professional. There people are thinking very businesslike, very professional, that kind of thing. And you go there knowing that that's where most people's heads are at. So you don't go on LinkedIn and try to be a Twitter type of person. You know, it's just not going to work. So I'm there quite a lot.
I think it's also because of that you actually end up forgetting about LinkedIn, about checking in there, because it's not news that you need to be up to date with and, updating all of that. But anyway, I was just thinking about LinkedIn yesterday that I need to check in. Okay, so let's come to the story then now. Makoko residents. Earlier this week on Wednesday, Nigerian police used tear gas to disperse Makoko residents protesting the demolition of their homes in Lagos, an operation that has displaced thousands in one of Africa's largest floating informal settlements. The demolitions carried out by Lagos state authorities have sparked outrage among affected families, with reports of injuries during the protests. To speak to us more about this, we're joined by Jude Ojo from the Nigerian Slum Informal Settlement Federation, supported by Justice and Empowerment Initiatives. Jude, thank you for joining us. Good morning. So let's start with this. First of all, last week on this show, we spoke to Esther Bimbo from the Slum Dwellers International Federation in Nigeria about the issue of forced evictions and demolitions in Makoko. What is your response to the use of tear gas against Makoko residents protesting those demolitions?
As far as I'm concerned, and as far as our international regulation is concerned, the use of tear gas on peaceful protesters is not acceptable. It's not acceptable by all standards. More so that the people are very peaceful, they are not carrying arms, they are not making any trouble, and they marched from Koikeja on that bridge down to the assembly gates, only for you to lock them outside the gates, and they are only requesting that, look, this is public place, is our assembly place, and we should be given audience. And the next thing is for you to start shooting tear gas against peaceful protesters. It's not acceptable at all.
How have the families living in Makoko been affected, particularly women and children there?
In a very, 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 very deplorable condition. They are adversely affected. One, families are separated. Children separated from their parents. Husband does not know where the wife stays or the condition they are staying. They have to stay apart because they are no longer having a home of their own. And you can imagine babies sleeping in a canoe on the water. You can imagine the effect of that on people, having babies, women, men, making a makeshift house on a boat, not even a very big boat for that matter, canoe. It's very, very deplorable condition. And the means of livelihood have been destroyed. Mostly in Makoko, people there are fishermen and women. So they can no longer go to feed for their daily economic activities. Their homes are being destroyed. The children could not go to school anymore. Hospitals and all that were on the lagoon. Everybody knows that Makoko is on water. Were being demolished. So it's very, very deplorable condition.
As you mentioned, that economic activity is being disrupted as well. I think that's one thing we don't take into cognizance, that there are businesses that actually operate within those who are still living there as well.
There are businesses that have been disrupted and destroyed. For example, people smoking fish, people going to fish to bring fish from the lagoon for us in Lagos State to feed on. There are schools there going on. People who are marketing, selling one kind of foodstuffs or the other, could no longer do that trade anymore. They couldn't do this trade anymore.
Authorities are saying that these houses, these dwellings, were illegally built there. Is that justified? What is your response to that?
You see, people, especially in government, come with different kind of excuses. You are saying the place is not fit for human living, and at the same time, as you are demolishing these areas, you are also putting some adverts that we are seeing on social media everywhere on how much you are going to sell plots of land. So who is fooling who? Who is fooling who? If a place is not habitable enough for human living, what you are supposed to do is to make that place conducive for them to live. And you cannot come and demolish without court order. So that makes your demolition illegal. You did not, if you are going to demolish any house, not to talk of a community, you are supposed to serve contravention notice. After contravention notice, you come with your quick notice. After your quick notice, you must go to court and get demolition order. That yes, based on this demolition order, we are going to demolish this area so time. So the people will have been aware. The people will have been given fair hearing at the courts, because court must hear from the other side before approving demolition order. So this were not done. And this area we are talking of fall under the purview of the federal government. Why is it that the state agency that is coming to demolish arbitrarily? And as we are speaking, there are adverts of how much you are going to sell plots of land, how much you are going to sell by square meters in these areas that are being demolished. And you are demolishing in great numbers. Some areas you have about 13,000 people displaced, like in Ochumara community. In areas like in Oboroshoki, Precious and all that, about 30,000 people. So what are we talking about? What is the government doing?
Right, and what is the government doing then?
It's the duty of the government to provide shelter for people, to provide security for people, but they are rather doing contrary to what they are supposed to do under the Constitution. Thank you.
What are the legal protections for the residents of Makoko in terms of what action they can seek out from these evictions and those who are facing evictions? And are these legal protections being respected by the government of Nigeria? I mean, we're seeing even makeshift tents from those who have already been evicted looking nothing like tents. They look more like umbrellas.
Yes. The legal protection, as far as the people are concerned, we want to appreciate some of our NGOs that have been coming around, like JEI, coming around to see how they could assist the people to seek redress. Because most of these communities are financially handicapped to seek legal protection. So, but the NGOs like JEI are coming up to assist these people in one way or the other. However, it is very, very important that so many other means that have been exploited by the people are neglected by the government, such as letters writing, because when something like this is happening, you must notify the authority. Letters were written, petitions were written to the appropriate quarters in government to seek help, to appeal for assistance, and to give fair hearing, but these letters were ignored. So they don't have any options after written letters, visiting government agencies. The next options is to carry out protests. So these protests have been coming in different batches. Well, when they now realize that both letters and different protests are ignored, that was why the coalition of human rights come together and say, look, let us have a general protest so that it won't be this community alone or that community alone. So now we had a combination of all communities coming together to say, look, the letter we have been written that you have neglected, our different protests that you have neglected, we have come out in our numbers so that you will know what the effect of what you are doing on us. Most of you in government are living in your comfortable zones, houses with your families. But you have rendered other less privileged Nigerians, poor Nigerians, homeless, shattered, divasitated, in a very deplorable condition. And at the end of the day, despite the fact that police were adequately notified, the commissioners were on ground, the member of assembly said they are not safe to allow the people that voted them into office to enter the assembly complex field. We are not even asking for the hall now. Let's go to the field. Let us move away from the main road so that you can hear us out. You will hear our complaint. They said no, they should remain on the street. They are not comfortable with the people, that they don't feel safe. So you don't feel safe with the number of policemen with you, even including the commissioner of police. Still, you don't feel safe. But you think the people will feel safe living in deplorable condition in the lagoon, under the bridges, on the streets? It's very heartbreaking. It's very annoying.
What about the issue of homelessness? Is that, or this particular situation now that's happening and playing itself out, not going to further exacerbate homelessness in the country of Nigeria? Has that been an issue that's been raised? And has there been a response from government on that, if it has been raised?
It's a very serious issue because we last had low-cost housing program 1983 under Alhaji Lateef Jakonde in Lagos State. Since then, no more low-cost housing. Even the one they call medium low-cost housing are not medium. The ordinary Nigerian could not afford. And you can see the Nigerian population is not shrinking, but it's expanding, it's growing. Families are increasing, and government is not making provisions for them. Now, very annoying, very provoking. The little one that people were able to generate on their own, you are demolishing it without alternatives. I want to bring to the communities are not 10 years old, they are not 20 years old, they are not 30 years old. Like Otumara community is about 105 years old. Like the Makoko we are saying is about 100 years old. So what are we talking about? They are not just there yesterday. You know, these people are in these particular areas, these locations. So what is government supposed to do? They are supposed to plan for the people. So homelessness is a big problem in Nigeria. And government is not helping the situation at all. Rather, they are making it worse by sending people to the streets.
Right. Let's leave it there, Jude. It's not on a positive note, but we'll continue to follow the story as more unpacks. We appreciate your insights.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Jude Ojo. Thanks. From the Nigerian Slum Informal Settlement Federation, they are supported by Justice and Empowerment Initiatives.
Africa, meet Abedi.
Yeah, that's me.
Abedi is a music lover through and through.
I really love African music.
He's got a taste for all kinds of tunes and spends his days listening to Channel Africa. Guess what? He didn't know.
Okay.
Channel Africa wants to help Abedi and all music lovers everywhere to discover even more incredible music. That is why Channel Africa is calling on all African musicians to submit their music. Musicians, remember to give us all your relevant information. Make your submissions at music@channelafrica.co.za. Submissions are your chance to be heard on radio. But sadly, they do not guarantee that you will be playlisted. All submissions will be carefully reviewed to see if they meet our station's requirement. Channel Africa, the African perspective. New day, new stories. Start your morning right with Rise and Shine on Channel Africa.
The African Development Bank says that education in Africa must lead directly to jobs, economic growth and poverty reduction if the continent is to unlock its full potential. Speaking at the 20th anniversary of the African Council for Distance Education at the University of South Africa in Pretoria, the bank's Director for Human Development, Babatunde Omilola stressed the need to better match education systems with labour market needs, particularly in Africa, growing with youth population. He also outlined the bank's focus on expanding development financing and strengthening Africa's financial architecture. Channel Africa's Michael Mbewe has more.
For us at the African Development Bank, our interest really is to make sure that people in Africa are well trained, well educated, whether through distance education or open education or any forms of education, so that they can be gainfully employed, they can contribute significantly to rapid economic growth on the continent, and they can also contribute to reducing poverty and inequality on the continent. What we have seen over time is that education in most cases has not necessarily translated into employment generation, into poverty reduction, into rapid economic growth for Africa. And so our role as African Development Bank is to work with ECDE and other organizations working promoting education as an engine of economic growth, as an engine of rapid development. At the African Development Bank, we are focusing on 4 cardinal points, and all of those 4 cardinal points are really very relevant to the improvement of education in Africa. We are focusing on mobilizing more capital, more financing for Africa, because currently our callable capital at the African Development Bank is about $318 billion US, which can only respond to 2 or 3% of Africa's developmental needs. And so we need to scale up the resources. Our second cardinal point is focusing on strengthening African financial architecture. And the third one, which is really relevant for this meeting, is how to harness the demographic dividend in Africa, youth dividend in Africa. We have a continent of 1.4 billion people, and most of them are young people. How do we train them, educate them, make them to contribute to the rapid development of the continent? And fourthly, our aim is to focus more on infrastructure in Africa, including digital infrastructure, which is really useful for today's education in terms of AI, in terms of also digital penetration and internet usage in different African countries. So we are here to really collaborate and partner with ACDE and other institutions on how to promote education for development in Africa.
I'm very impressed on how you have, highlighted on, the work that you are doing. But most of the time, this type of developmental mechanisms or platforms are concentrated in urban areas than in rural areas. In terms of even now, if we're talking about data access, and then also accessing digital devices and all that is solely concentrated in urban areas. How is your organization trying to expand that so that it can reach to the last person in the rural village in Kigali somewhere, or in Abuja, there's a village somewhere in Malawi or Zambia?
Well, our work covers the entire continent of Africa, all the 54 African countries, our regional member countries, and we work in everywhere in all of those countries, whether in rural area or in urban areas or in semi-urban places. Our aim really is to catalyze development in Africa as much as possible. So it all depends also on the requests that we get from governments, countries in Africa that are shareholders to the bank in terms of the kind of support they are looking for. But we make sure that we close the rural-urban divide in Africa. And so everything that we do, whether in terms of training, education, or digital access, or employment opportunities, or small and medium enterprises support, we really look into everywhere in Africa, including rural areas, because most poor people in Africa, they live in rural areas, and if we really want to reduce poverty or eradicate poverty totally, in Africa, we have to invest more in rural areas. And so we are doing this, whether it's in terms of agriculture, for instance. We have what we call the special agro-industrial processing zones as projects at the African Development Bank, which focus mostly on rural areas in terms of adding value to what is being produced, and then supporting the connection to the urban centers and to markets. So everything that we do at the bank, we focus on all areas of Africa, rural areas, urban areas, everywhere. Our interest is really to help Africa grow and reduce poverty.
That was the African Development Bank's Director for Human Development, Babatunde Omilola, speaking to Channel Africa's Michael Mbewe. It's 8:30. It's time for your news headlines. Here's Onelin Sinsi.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Peter. Burkina Faso military-led government has dissolved all political parties and scrapped the legal framework that's governing their operations. That decision by the military rulers who seized power in September 2022 is the latest move to tighten control following the suspension of political activities. The application of South Africa's former presidents Jacob Zuma and Thabo Mbeki for the recusal of the chairperson of the Kampepe inquiry has been dismissed. The former presidents had filed papers before the Commission of Inquiry into the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky says he'd like the U.S. to halt Russian strikes on his country's energy infrastructure. Channel Africa News, I'm Onele Ntsintsi.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
All right, let's catch you up. Final sports bulletin on Rise and Shine with Musibudi Makura.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Thank you so much, Peter. Very good morning from the Sports Day. So South Africa's Sports Minister, Gayton McKenzie, has vowed to bring the Africa Cup of Nations tournament to South Africa in 2028. So McKenzie has already openly expressed interest in bidding to host the 2028 AFCON tournament after the Confederation of African Football confirmed late in December that they will be shifting the tournament from a two-year event now from a two-year event to now a 4-year event. Now, speaking exclusively to SABC Sport, the minister believes it's high time the country actually applies to host the Continental Football Championship, having previously stepped in the 11th hour to host the tournament in 2013.
The African Cup of Nations should come here. It has been, if we don't host it in 2028, then it will go 2 decades without us having the African Cup of Nations this side. You must know we've never applied for African Cup of Nations. The last time it was held here, we were standing in. So the time has come for us to apply and to get it. It's definitely coming. I mean, Bafana is on a roll.
Now, with the 1st of February bidding deadline fast approaching, McKenzie further confirmed a joint bid alongside Namibia, Botswana, and potentially Lesotho and Mozambique will be formalized this week.
Yeah, the deadline is Sunday. Tomorrow we will be putting in our official the intention to host it, and we want to host it with Namibia, want to host it with Botswana. Lesotho has now sent me a letter, they also want to be part of it. Mozambique. So the more the merrier, we can share the games, but for me, Southern Africa, Kinako, is no time, it's our time.
On to cricket news now. Quinton de Kock smashed a sensational 115-5 South Africa to a 7-wicket victory over the West Indies in Centurion in the country's capital city Pretoria on Thursday. Chasing 222 runs, de Kock dominated a 162-run stand with Ryan Brickleton, who finished unbeaten on 77 from 36 balls. This as the Proteas cruised to a victory with 15 balls to spare. So the South African bowlers had earlier fought back to restrict the visitors to 221 for 4 before de Kock led up the Supersport Park with 6 4s and 10 6s, many with glorious straight drives. It was his second T20 century in T20 internationals, and both scored against the West Indies at the same venue. Well, continue with the winning note. South Africa, meanwhile, struck the first blow in the Spa Challenge Netball Series at the Ellis Park Arena in the city of Johannesburg on Thursday night, holding their nerve to win the opening test 52-48 against England. Now, playing in front of a home crowd for the very first time since 2024, there were a few nerves from the South Africans in the opening minutes. So the two nations will now meet again in the second match at the same venue on Saturday. Meanwhile, in the curtain raiser, earlier in the day at the Ellis Park Arena, South Africa's men's netball team went down 36-69 to the visiting Australian team. In tennis news, Aryna Sabalenka will face Elena Rybakina in the Women's Australian Open final. The Women's Singles Championship match has a familiar feel in the rematch of the 2023 edition, with the stakes as high as ever in the first Grand Slam tournament of the season. So neither woman has dropped a set on their way to the final, with Sabalenka returning for a fourth year in a row. The world number one can tie Martina Hingis as well as Martina Navratilova should she clinch her third title in 4 editions at Melbourne Park.
Yeah, it was a great battle we played, and I think just in the end she played a bit better, and she won that match, very deserved. And I'm just I want to enjoy. That's for sure the final, and hopefully I'm gonna serve better than today, and it's gonna help me, and we'll see. But I'm so excited to play.
Right, so that's of course Elena Rybakina. I'm looking forward now to that final against Aryna Sabalenka coming up tomorrow morning. It is the first semi-final between Carlos Alcaraz as well as Alexander Zverev in the men's singles. Carlos Alcaraz ranked world number 1, having won the first set 6-4, and he also won the second set 7-5, having went to a tie-break. At the moment in the third set, it is 5-all with Carlos Alcaraz 30-15 up. And that's a wrap from the Sports Desk this morning on Africa Rise and Shine. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, do send us an email. That's to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za. Give us a call as well on +27 11714 4459. I'm back with more sports news with the On The Move team in the next hour. For Channel Africa Sport, I am Musibu Di Makura.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Coming up on Rise and Shine, it is Friday, so we catch you up with what's been happening in the world of the arts and culture, entertainment, as well as lifestyle. That's our feature we call the Arty Beat, so stay tuned for that.
Africa at Play with Neto and ETO Chemane.
Lelintle, talk to us about your relationship with your father, Coach Pitso. What is this one thing that he said to you that is still stuck at the top of your head?
Coach Pitso and our mom, Mora Tlhagale, have always told us that whatever we do in life, we must do it to the best of our abilities and, represent our family well. But the big thing is do what you love and do it with all the passion that you have. And I think we see it in both their work. I mean, my mom has done a really good job with placing Coach Pitso in different clubs around the world, and she's negotiated contracts, and she's shown that as a woman you can also do work that is seen, and you can also get respect from men in a male-dominated space. And I think my dad has also shown that you must never underestimate the Black African man.
Lelintle Mosimane, a South African communications and digital media professional. Lelintle is also a daughter to a great mentor when it comes to the game of football, Coach Jingles Mosimane.
Live every Saturday and Sunday from 2 to 5 p.m. Africa's story shines at 60. Channel Africa.
The African Perspective.
Let's catch you up with what's happening in the world of business. Here's Chanduko Ligege.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Asanda. Good morning. Ghana's cedi is expected to weaken further next week on firm corporate demand, while Nigeria's naira is seen holding steady and Kenya's shilling is likely to remain stable, reflecting mixed currency trends across sub-Saharan Africa. The cedi is forecast to depreciate in the coming week, pressured by steady corporate demand from the energy, services and construction sectors. According to the London Stock Exchange data yesterday, the cedi traded at 10.97 compared to 10.85 a week ago. A trader at Stanbic Bank Ghana, Ronald Mensah, says the cedi remains under mild pressure while foreign exchange demand persistently outpacing supply. He further notes that while the central bank's foreign exchange spot auctions have provided occasional relief, market tightness persists. Another News Independent economist Alice Kruger says despite the multiple challenges in the South African economy in 2025, the resilience of net salaries in the country's workforce is a reflection of the gradual improvement in economic activity. The Paying Net Salary Index shows South African salary earners showed surprising resilience in 2025 despite tough economic conditions. With economic growth expected to strengthen and inflation remaining under control, economists believe salary growth could remain resilient, offering some relief for South African workers in the year ahead. Kruger says businesses' pressure has eased compared to previous years, improving the outlook for salaries.
Yes, companies are still facing rising costs, although we have seen a moderation in that regard. Average producer price inflation for 2025 is likely to come in at about 1.5%, rising this year to 2.9%, but still below 3%. So yes, there's rising costs, but not to the extent that we have seen in the past. From that point of view, and given that we expect real GDP growth to be about 1.6% in 2026, I do indeed believe that salary growth similar to what we had in 2025 is indeed sustainable and possible for 2026.
The South African Federation of Trade Unions, SAFTU, has called for urgent intervention in halting what it calls deindustrialization, factory closures and the wholesaling of the country's economy. The Trade Union Federation has criticized plans by British American Tobacco to shut down its local manufacturing plant at the end of the year. The company cited criminal syndicates dominating the industry as the main reason, with illicit cigarettes now accounting for 75% of the market. SAFTU General Secretary Zulinzima Vavi says they've also taken issue with the Tobacco Products and Electronic Delivery Systems Control Bill that is currently up for consideration in Parliament.
Parliament must not pass, we repeat, the Tobacco Control Bill in its current form. The process must be halted immediately. This bill will weaken legal producers, will strengthen illicit and criminal operators, will accelerate factory closures, and will finish off the thousands of remaining manufacturing jobs. You cannot regulate compliant companies out of existence whilst criminals operate freely.
In East Africa, Ethiopian Airlines has cancelled flights from Addis Ababa to several airports in the northern Tigray region as tensions resurface there. The BBC's Michael Teferi has more details.
Airline staff were told not to report to work. Passengers were notified via text message citing unforeseen circumstances. It comes amid fears of a renewed conflict between Tigrayan forces and the Ethiopian federal government. A 2022 peace deal ended a war over Tigray that killed 500,000 people, but disagreements have remained, including over disputed territories and delays to disarming of Tigrayan forces. One resident of Mekelle said hundreds of people queued today to withdraw money, but that many banks were out of cash.
President Donald Trump says the U.S. is decertifying Bombardier Global Express business jets and has threatened 50% import tariffs on all aircraft made in Canada until the country's regulator certified a number of planes produced by U.S. rival Gulfstream. The declaration came amid broader tensions between the neighboring countries after Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney, citing U.S. trade policy last week, urged nations to accept the end of the rules-based global order that Washington had once championed. That threat, if carried out, will have a drastic impact on U.S. carriers, which rely on Canadian-made airplanes for many of their regional services. Now let's look at financial indicators. $1 in Nigeria is at 1,391 Naira, Botswana 12 Pula 93. Kenya, the dollar is 128 shilling 11. Zambia 19 Kwacha 79. BRICS countries, $1 in Brazil is at 5 real 20. Russia 75 rubles 78. India 90 81 rupee 92, China 6 yuan 95, South Africa 15 rand 73 cents. $1 is 72 pence to the British pound and 84 to the euro. Commodities: gold is trading at $5,190, platinum at $2,479 per ounce, the price of Brent crude oil at $69.83 a barrel. That's all for now. For any business stories you'd like to share with us, please send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za, or you can call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa Business, I am Chanduko Ligege.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
Get in touch with us at Channel Africa 1 is our handle where you can do that, and you can find us on social media platforms. We are on all of them, Facebook, Instagram, X, TikTok, and LinkedIn as well.
Você é fluente em português? É apaixonado por rádio e quer trabalhar na África do Sul? Você tem documentos que o qualificam para trabalhar na África do Sul? Nesse caso, podemos ter uma oportunidade para você trabalhar no Canal África. Envie seu currículo e demonstração para Canal África @ newsroom@channelafrica.co.za. Lembre-se, se você não receber alguma resposta nossa em 14 dias, isso significa que você não foi selecionado. Canal África, a perspectiva africana.
Time now for Arty Beats. This is where we catch you up with the world of entertainment, of the arts and culture, and music sometimes. We are brought this every week on Fridays by Channel Africa's Nhlanhla Mahlangu. So let's take a listen to this edition.
Welcome to this week's African RT Beats exclusive to Channel Africa, the African Perspective. I am Ndlandla Mahlangu. In this week's segment, a dynamic cultural and creative showcase to take place in Mahikeng, South Africa's Northwest Province, and South African cinemas pull Melania Trump documentary ahead of its release. Art Meet Fashion, a multidisciplinary creative economy event that brings together fashion, visual arts, live performances, food and culture while creating meaningful platforms for local creatives, designers and artists to showcase their work and connect with audiences, stakeholders and industry leaders, will take place in Mahikeng in the Northwest Province in South Africa on Saturday, the 31st of January. Chief Director at My Arts International, Dennis Akulei, says the event seeks to celebrate African creativity and support the creative economy.
Art Meet Fashion, the concept in fact started as a movement in New York, in Brooklyn, just years after South Africa hosted the World Cup, so around 2012, 2013. And it started through a collaboration that we had with the Brooklyn Style Foundation. And at that time, they used to host the Fashion Week Brooklyn. And then we started collaboration with them by having South African designers showcasing in New York. Almost every year, we had good designers locally that participated in those fashion shows those years. And part of what they were doing was also the movement fashion, Art Meet Fashion, where they would bring together artists as well as fashion designers for collaboration in terms of being in one place, seeing what can other do in the other sector. So you will notice that now these days, what is very popular is now you find literally visual artists that are doing art within the garment. You know, they will take the garments and then paint it and do some art in the garment, and that's become so unique. So the movement started like that, where in one event you've got exhibition, you've got installations, fashion installations, you've got dialogue, networking, you know, everything that talks to the creative industry. So that's how the movement started. So we had the first one in South Africa in 2014 at the Constitution Hill around June 16. That is how we celebrated Youth Day, by bringing fashion designers and artists. And then from there, we then did other shows in different parts of the country.
The current edition is happening in Mahikeng in the Northwest Province. Why this province?
Oh, yeah. At first, we were looking for somewhere where we wanted to bring something authentic, something unique. We wanted to bring vibe at the end of January month. So we looked around within the Northwest Province because we should be having another one taking place in Sun City later this year. And then this is serve as a build-up to that mega one. Then we thought that Mahikeng could be a perfect place to connect with locals, to work with institutions like Mabana, like the Department of Art and Culture in the province, like the tourism board, as well as other local small businesses, to just produce something that not only gives exposure to local artists, but also gives hope of a new year, new business, new connectivities, and new networks in the beginning of the year.
So what can one expect this time around? Who are some of the artists and the designers that will be partaking at this event?
We see this event as a very good, relaxed platform where people will come to enjoy the fashion show, to look at the different exhibitions there. And also what is unique now, we are bringing few wine houses, and the event for this edition, it will be combined with wine tasting, wine education as well, just to create a good vibe amongst people. And we want this to be a place where different small business will be there, networking, and engage also with each other. So at the event on Saturday, we're starting 4 o'clock, and the event will feature a fashion show. It will feature a series of fashion installations. We will have exhibition, indoor and outdoor, exhibition from artists, exhibition for fashion designers, and exhibition from lifestyle businesses, small businesses. There's a lot of businesses that have exposure. They want to have exposure, they want to have a table, and they want to have a corner where they can showcase their products. We welcome all those. We want it to be a place where it's not just about arts and fashion. It's also about boosting business, creating network, new links. So it's going to be vibey. So from 4 o'clock to 9 o'clock, Mahikeng Cook Lake Resort this Saturday. We're hoping that people of Mahikeng will come in numbers and enjoy their Saturday evening together with artists that will be performing, fashion designers, models, visual artists, poets, filmmakers, writers, and the whole sector of the creative world.
South African cinemas Tekineko and New Metro have officially dropped plans to screen Melania, a documentary about U.S. First Lady Melania Trump, who's married to President Donald Trump. The decision came just days before its global scheduled release on Friday, the 30th of January. President Donald Trump publicly criticized South Africa on various domestic and international issues, including unfounded claims about a genocide of the white Afrikaans community. He established a specific U.S. refugee program for white Afrikaners for settlement in the United States. The film follows Melania during the weeks leading up to her husband's second inauguration. It has also drawn criticism because of its director, Brett Ratner. In 2017, during the height of the Me Too movement, Ratner was accused of sexual misconduct. This is his first Hollywood film since then. That's it from this week's African RT Beats. Until next Friday for Channel Africa, I am Ndlandla Mahlangu in Johannesburg.
Right, it's 5 minutes before the top of the hour. Let's take a look at this story about salaries. South Africa's salary earners showed a surprising resilience in 2025 with the Pay Inc. net salary index remaining above a year ago's levels despite tough economic conditions. And the big question now is whether that momentum can be sustained in 2026. Lebahang Mabange found out.
The Pay Inc. Net Salary Index, which tracks the average nominal net salaries of more than 2 million South Africans, maintained strong momentum throughout 2025, even as companies faced rising costs and economic pressure. According to independent economist Elise Kruger, this resilience reflects improving economic conditions.
The resilience of net salaries, despite multiple challenges in the South African economy in 2025, is a reflection of the gradual improvement in economic activity observed. Real GDP growth for 2025 should end at about 1.3% compared to the previous year's 0.5%, so almost double. And that additional economic activity resulted in companies increasing their profits and have been in a better space to offer good salary increases during the course of 2025.
While businesses continue to face cost pressures, Kruger says that these pressures have eased compared to previous years, improving the outlook for salaries.
Yes, companies are still facing rising costs, although we have seen a moderation in that regard. Average producer price inflation for 2025 is likely to come in at about 1.5%, rising this year to 2.9%, but still below 3%. So yes, there's rising costs, but not to the extent that we have seen in the past. From that point of view, and given that we expect real GDP growth to be about 1.6% in 2026, I do indeed believe that salary growth similar to what we had in 2025 is indeed sustainable and possible for 2026.
Looking ahead to 2026, inflation and interest rate expectations could further support salary growth.
Zooming into the expectations for inflation and interest rates in 2026, on the inflation side, I forecast a 3.4% average, just marginally above the 21-year low of 3.2% that we recorded for 2025. So inflation in South Africa well under control. Looking at interest rates, the fact that we do have inflation under control and the fact that we still have real or high real interest rates in South Africa, there's indeed scope for further interest rate cuts. So I think both inflation and interest rates per se are positive tailwinds for the South African economy in 2026 and should support the economic growth outlook and specifically the growth forecast of to 1.6%.
With economic growth expected to strengthen and inflation remaining under control, economists believe salary growth could remain resilient, offering some relief for South African workers in the year ahead. Reporting for Channel Africa, I am Lebogang Mabange in Johannesburg, South Africa.
All right, so that's our final story for this Friday. Your highlights for this week, what story stood out for you the most?
Do you know what, for me, I continue to be concerned about Uganda. We started the week hearing about Chagulani's wife being beaten up by police and hospitalized. Politics in this country and this continent should not be about if you oppose the governing party that you will face consequences for having a dissenting view. And it seems to be a theme actually that carries itself right across our continent, and that really saddens me. So that to me continues to be something that stands out for me. And then
for me, Makoko is the one that stands out, and I think I'm glad that there's no internet shutdown at least there, because now we're seeing imagery and you get the picture fully as you're even talking, and interviewing those who are involved there. It's just a horrible situation, and I think homelessness is something we don't talk enough about, which is a big challenge in a lot of our African countries. And these situations of housing, bad urban planning or whatever it is, all these factors that contribute to it, they just exacerbate that.
And we start to use euphemisms like informal settlement. When actually we're
it's squatter camps, slums. People living in conditions they should not be living in.
Anyway,
it's goodbye then from us. Hey?
Have a great weekend, Asanda.
You too.
We hand you over to the team that is on the move.
SABC News. The African Perspective.